Welcome to the TravelPulse podcast. Here's your host, Mark Murphy.
Hey, it's Mark Murphy back with the TravelPulse podcast, the intersection of politics. Oh, man. Are you kidding me? Politics? What the heck? Politics? Is anybody actually talking politics? Yeah, that's all we freaking do. You got to be kidding me, man. Like last week, I waited till after the midterms because you know what? We could just kind of touch on it and move on. Well, here we are. It is now over a week later, and we still don't know a number of different races out there. What a mess. What a mess. And that's why we talk travel. But unfortunately for the travel industry, sometimes things in politics do affect us. The good news is not so much. Not so much. Usually it's the things that really affect us are the things that are more fabricated by different news outlets or sensationalized by different news outlets. And you got to cut through the crap to get to the truth. So that's exactly what we did. And just to give you a little update, we just released it. It's literally out on YouTube on the Murphy Travels channel, on the TravelPulse channel. It's up on TravelPulse, and it's in a story on TravelPulse in addition to being in the video section. And it is a video that we shot over a period of about 4 weeks in the state of Quintana Roo, which includes Cancun, Riviera Maya, Playa del Carmen, Isla Mujeres, Cozumel, and we went everywhere. My crew and I, we traveled and we spoke to a host of different folks and provided a documentary style look into what's really going on in Mexico. So you could not only hear from me and see what I was experiencing, but you could actually hear from travelers in about a 12 and a half, 13 minute segment. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't seen it yet, to go take a look at that, because when you watch it, you're going to be blown away, because I ran into a lady in Playa del Carmen who about 6 years ago decided to move to Playa del Carmen. She's single. And I asked her if she ever feels unsafe. And she said, absolutely not. In fact, I walk home alone at night and so on and so forth. Never a problem. Then a lady who was out with her boyfriend in Cozumel. They had taken a scooter and were cruising the island, just like we had taken a Jeep with the crew and were cruising around. And she made the statement that she gets harassed more at home than she does in Mexico as a single woman. So something to think about. And then, of course, you've heard me say this before, but we ran into some parents, and I feature one of those folks, the Thoyer family. I got a speech impediment. I'm not supposed to say that because then someone's going to get offended, and God forbid that somebody out there that's actually got a speech impediment. And can you say Lou Holtz, one of my favorite coaches of all time, former Notre Dame coach, South Carolina coach. Yeah, I said it. So I'll have to live with the guilt now going forward. But anyway, Thoyers, I think how you say their freaking names. And they're from Alabama, and they had two little towheads, a 6-month-old and about a 2.5-year-old. And you can see them being interviewed and their take on it as well. So enough of that. The reality is there are things that can happen anywhere, and things do happen, and it's terrible. I know a guy who was just down for a big celebration with a group, American kid. I think he was about 28, 29. He ended up getting killed, and they're not sure what happened, but he was found far outside of Playa del Carmen, where he was at a bar with all of his friends. Nobody knows how he disappeared. They lost track of him, and he ended up a good distance away. And people who saw the crime said that 3 guys attacked him, and he ended up being stabbed to death, which is horrendous and absolutely terrible. And it just goes to show that, if you spotlight that is a terrible, terrible thing. And again, we don't know what the heck happened. All we know is where he was attacked and found was very far away from the downtown area of Playa del Carmen. So, it's, again, speculation. The parents got to feel terrible for the parents, because now they're asking the FBI to get involved. But again, if you read the newspaper, the Chicago Tribune, or just tune into local Chicago news, it's like the shooting, murder, fatality counts for every weekend in Chicago come out and nobody bats an eye because we're so used to it. But, again, it happens literally everywhere in the U.S. And of course, we've had those mass shootings. We had that situation in Thousand Oaks just a week ago. Again, things can happen anywhere, folks. So if you want to live your life in fear, then that is your option. If, on the other hand, you think rationally and you think about the odds, you are far safer going on vacation than you are, in many cases, staying in certain hometowns where you might live in the U.S. Just the facts of life. So with that said, we're going to get on to some funnier stuff because guess what? The folks up in Canada did a little study, these scientists, it's part of the CBC. These flight attendants told the CBC that they find things on planes. I'm going to read it to you because can't even believe what I'm reading. But then again, if you fly, you can believe it. So these flight attendants told the CBC up in Canada that they find personal trash, including dirty diapers, used tampons, old sandwiches, and condoms in the seat back pockets of planes. Are you going to put your hand in that sleeve again, folks? I don't think so. Let me read that to you again. They find dirty diapers, used tampons, old sandwiches, loose condoms. I don't know, loose versus whatever, loose condoms in seat back pockets. Wow, that's disgusting. And then they also said that they find everything from bacteria to yeast and mold and even E. coli on the headrests and seat pockets of planes. Bathroom handles, tray tables, seat belts, all of them are breeding grounds. So, wow. As a germaphobe, an official germaphobe, I'm not afraid to say it. I got to tell you, I think about that and I just go, wow. I feel like I'm Marcus Welby for you older folks. Marcus Welby, MD, when he comes out, he's like, he's scrubbing, he's doing the surgical scrub. He's got the hands going, right? He's ready. Woo! Yeah, that's how I feel sometimes. I literally will hold my hands up and try not to put my fingers on things if I've touched a handle now I'm giving you a little TMI. So, but anyway, I'm not neurotic. I'm just a little neurotic, all right? Well, maybe, just maybe, it was a reaction on a plane, this time it was an Air India flight, that set this woman last week off on this Air India flight. So this Irish lady on the plane, turns out she's 50 years of age. She went ballistic. And a lot of it is captured on video. And I got to tell you, man, if you've watched the video, it's unbelievable what comes out of this woman's mouth. And she's literally physically attacking the flight attendants, all because she wants a freaking drink. I'm like, lady, stop giving Irish people a bad freaking name there. What the hell are you doing? Don't you be doing that. You're making guys like Murphy look terrible, for heaven's sake. Yeah, she wanted a drink and she was really pissed. She couldn't get one. And needless to say, she landed and they sent her to the pokey. So God bless her. She's out. But the damage to the reputation of my Irish brethren, we got to get it back, folks. We got to get it back. So based on that, I am not going to have a bourbon tonight. Okay. I'm just not going to have a bourbon. Just want to go on the record. But then again, you wouldn't know if I had a bourbon, so I could tell you anything. Yeah, I'm going to have a freaking bourbon. I'm just kidding. I don't really care what she does because that's not me. Because I don't get identified by being Irish or white or, college educated or, entrepreneurial or whatever. I'm just a person and I'm enjoying life. That's it. That's all it is. So what happens when you're on a plane and you're the pilot and you're flying over Ireland in this case, and you see a very fast-moving airplane, something that's super fast-moving, that's in the air, that's got lights. And when we say fast moving, like Mach 2, like smoking past the plane. And it comes up next to you with other vessels nearby. And then they all just kind of take off. And you're the pilot. Well, you don't want to sound like a freaking nut. Because you know what? You're not a nut. Because they're out there. They are out there. And maybe we just found them. So these pilots call air traffic control and tell them what they saw. And of course, they're asking, well, is there any military out here? What's going on? And you just saw something a little strange, and you could tell they were holding back a little bit. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. They saw something, and they couldn't explain it. And these are freaking pilots, folks. They see a lot of stuff, right? And this is not the first time pilots have said they have seen objects approaching a plane and then shooting off at supersonic speeds. So I don't know. Other than maybe a military operation or some secret military craft that nobody else knows about, which is hard to keep anything secret these days. But let's say that's it. Other than that, what the hell could it be? I would love to interview these BA pilots as soon as they get out of the loony bin, because is anybody going to believe them? I know I do. But anyway, hopefully they don't get shipped off to the funny farm. And speaking of the funny farm, how about the Trump supporter who gets banned from Disney for holding up the freaking Trump sign? Seriously, man? Dude, they told you once to knock it off. And again, I don't care if you're a Trump supporter or a Trump hater or you're indifferent, you're in the middle. I could care less. Here's what I do know. If I'm at a hotel, a restaurant, a theme park, and I do something and I get called out for it and they say, you can't do that. If you do it, we're going to have to kick you out. They did that once. They told me can't do it again. He came back, did it again. And guess what? They kicked him out and now they've banned him. So that guy's not going back to Disney. And it's funny because he basically goes around and drops different signs all over the place. So he's obviously got his plan in place and he's executing on that plan, which I'll give him credit for. But if they tell you to stop, you got to stop, man. But he's cool with that. I guess he got his publicity because I'm here talking about it on our podcast. Now, in addition to publicity about, guys holding up signs, how about you folks who've been thinking about going to Cuba, or should I say Cuba? If you're going to Cuba and you're going to wait a little bit, which is a little over a year and a half from now, Carnival is refurbishing one of their ships and they're going to home port it out of New York. And you're going to be able to go out of New York as well as Virginia and get to Cuba as part of that sailing and enjoy an overnight stay in Havana and some of the other spots throughout Cuba. Because what they'll do is they'll go into Havana and then you'll sail all the way around the island and you'll hit a couple other spots. You have to check the itineraries, but that's something that's coming. The nice thing about going out of a home port is when you get from Virginia, like up to Maine, pretty much it's putting that ship within a 6-hour drive of a good chunk of the population. I mean, millions and millions of people. So I think that'll spur more interest in experiencing Cuba. It's kind of like a sampler menu. You're going to stop in the Bahamas, a couple stops there, then you're going to go to Cuba. But the problem is with the cruise to Cuba, just generally speaking, you don't get enough time on the ground there. And that would be my one criticism. I like to spend more time on the ground in a destination like that, especially Havana. So I would try to figure out a way to do that. But if at the same time you love cruising and you want to at least get a taste of it, then you can always come back and experience it later. This new Carnival sailing for you guys up here in the Northeast is going to be awesome for you starting in 2020. So a little early to tell you about it, but I think, we have news like that on TravelPulse every day. I think that's kind of interesting to see the commitment to Carnival's making to the Cuba market with those sailings out of the New York and Virginia markets. So anyway, I'm sitting right now in Fort Lauderdale, man. And I can tell you the weather is gorgeous. Hurricane season is behind us. Thank God. And it was a very nice hurricane season for all of us folks that are on the East Coast here. Obviously, the Panhandle, Mexico Beach got crushed a few weeks ago, so that was terrible. But the Caribbean, Mexico, unscathed this year. So let's talk a little bit about the Caribbean. A lot of folks, we saw what happened last year in Puerto Rico, a double hit. A lot of people said, oh, the Caribbean, it's been devastated. They couldn't have been more wrong. Like 85% of the Caribbean was totally fine after hurricane season last year. However, geographically, people put it all in one bucket. And if Puerto Rico gets hit, well, man, Aruba's got to be no good too. And, Jamaica's no good. And the answer is absolutely not. You should always talk to a travel professional because they will tell you where everything is fine. And they'll tell you, you know what, they're not ready yet. Stay on the sidelines. So a lot of people, when things like natural disasters, hurricanes happen, what they do is they turn around and they donate money to the Red Cross and what have you. And if you were able to do that, that's fantastic. You helped the people back when they needed that help and those resources were available. At the same time, you're able to make yourself a charity starting right now. And you can give to yourself. But by giving to yourself, you're going to be helping the Caribbean. Here's how it works. You book a freaking trip to Puerto Rico. You go down and you spend time there and money there. And by doing so, you're having a great time. They're open for business. And guess what? As you're having a great time and they're open for business, your money is positively impacting the folks working and living there. It brings dollars into the destination. And that goes for any affected area in the Caribbean. But Puerto Rico was hit the hardest and has had the longest road back. So I would look there first and then look at the rest of the Caribbean and pick and choose what, matches what you want to do. Or if you're a travel agent, what matches what your customer wants to do. And then go ahead and give back by traveling there. And people don't really realize how much of a deal that is. And it costs you nothing in terms of charity because you're getting a vacation out of it. But you got to feel pretty damn good when you do it. And I know I do. Whenever that happens, I love talking about it because I know that helps spread the word. But then if you all take action, then we really accomplish something. And I'd love to see you do that. So go ahead. Don't worry if you didn't give to the Red Cross. Give back by booking a trip. Even if it's like a long weekend, just get down there and do something because you know what happens? You go, you see with your own eyes, you report back to friends. They go, that sounds fantastic. They book it. And, one friend comes back and tells 5 or 6 friends and 2 or 3 of them travel and they come back and 10 of their friends travel and you see how it grows. It becomes exponential, but it's got to start now. So make sure you get on it. Okay. Now, shifting gears just a little bit, I'm super psyched to see a focus on the straws. So I got a little crap probably like 2 years ago. I don't know if you guys remember that turtle that had the straw in its nose and they were trying to pull it out with the tweezers or I think it was a pliers. So it was horrific. The turtle was literally screaming. And I posted that video because the thing that has stuck in my crawl, while everyone's talking about climate change and global warming and all this other stuff, where it's all about modeling and it's all about forecasting. And we can go back 15 or 20 years and look at the forecast from then and all of the predictions. And a lot of them, actually, I don't think any of them have literally come true in the time frame that they were outlined. I'm not saying it's not something you got to worry about or something you got to look at, but there's this elephant in the room. It's made of plastic and it's everywhere, folks. So the straws, I think, are a great starting point and they're building awareness for just plastic waste in general. And the thing that brought it to my attention in a huge, huge way was when I went to Vietnam several years ago and I went out to Ha Long Bay. And in Ha Long Bay, I'm looking at this beautiful, beautiful scenery, these islands and the greenery and just stunning. And then I'm looking down as the little junk goes cruising by because we were out there for, like a 1 or 2 night type of experience. And I see plastic bottles, plastic garbage bags, just garbage, just everywhere, just floating everywhere. And I got to tell you, it was beyond disturbing. And of course, you've heard about the big plastic, island, if you would, in the middle of the Pacific. They say it's massive. It's like the size of all of North America. I mean, it's insane. And it's something we can see, we can touch, we can attack, and we can make a difference. And to me, that's the thing you got to look at. As an entrepreneur, I look at all the things that I want to do, but I can't do everything I want to do. You know why? Because I'm funding the whole damn thing. And if I do everything, I don't have the money. So let's welcome to the world. It's like when people talk about, well, we could do this, we could do that. And I think, well, that's like $4 trillion. So that's $32 trillion or whatever the hell it is. You can't afford some of these things that people want to talk about. So it's wishful thinking. It isn't reality. But when it comes to minimizing waste, every day you can take steps to do that. And the straw situation, that's a step in the right direction. I see tons of travel industry companies saying we're not going to do it anymore. And again, think about it. Why the hell do you need to put one of them plastic straws? It's not really a straw. It's just like a placeholder in a cocktail. Because what do? It's a stirring stick. Well, if they make the drink properly, you don't need a freaking stirring stick. And guess what? What do you do with it? As soon as I get it, I just take it out. I put it on the counter. They throw it in the freaking garbage. It's a disgrace. So thank you to the travel industry folks for getting rid of that. I think that is awesome. And it's something we can do something about, and we can do something about it right now. Right now, you can make a difference, every one of you. So I think that's cool. Can we make a difference with man-made climate change? I don't think they've actually proven man-made climate change yet, despite all the rhetoric and hype. And even if they said yes, then you got to ask yourself, okay, is it feasible? Let's say we are creating climate change by driving SUVs or whatever it is we do. Then you got to ask yourself, well, how do we affect that? Well, stop driving SUVs. Well, if you actually look at the distribution, let's say, of CO2 gases and say, if everyone walked every day and got rid of their cars or rode bikes, what would the impact be? Infinitesimal. But here's something that's really interesting. If you look at agribusiness, and I said this to one of my writers, they're writing about climate change. And I asked them straight up, I said, are you a vegan? They're like, no. And I go, well, do me a favor. Right now, you're publishing something, or you want to publish something that, really is factually not correct. Because at the end of the day, if you want to talk about greenhouse gases and you want to talk about strains on the environment, if everybody went to a plant-based diet, and full disclosure, I am not vegan, I slant that way, but I eat everything except red meat. If you do that, then what happens is you save massively the environment. If everybody became a plant eater, 50-something% of those effects globally, if everyone did it, would go away. So I said, hey, come back and lecture me about things after you've made that change in your life, because then you won't be talking about it, you'll actually be living it. And that's a great argument to come back with, because by not eating meat and farm and animals that are raised, for slaughter, etc., dairy products as well, you know what happens? You dramatically lower your impact on the environment, much more so than parking your SUV. So some food for thought. I think a lot of people don't realize that. And I didn't realize that until I got a little education by my hipster son. So made me watch a documentary called Cowspiracy. And I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go, right? At the time I was eating burgers. And then I was like, damn, I had no idea. But I'm not going to tell you any more about it. Just go watch it if you can. Cowspiracy, just like it sounds, Cowspiracy. You're going to be shocked at the numbers, and you're going to be shocked at some of the responses in this documentary they get from like the Sierra Club or whatever the heck, different organizations that promote the environment, yet don't even touch on the topic of agribusiness, which I find pretty remarkable, to be frank. All right, guess what? We gotta wrap up pretty quickly. So I got to hammer you with a few tips. Send you packing for Thanksgiving, although I'm going to be back with a podcast next week as well. So just a couple of ideas to think about for next week. If you have not booked a flight to wherever the heck you're going, travel tip number 1, book and fly out Thanksgiving Day. You may get delayed. You may miss the turkey, but that's okay because it's better for the environment, right? You just heard what I said, right? Screw the turkey. Well, turkey's kind of screwed anyway. Turkey's dead. But anyway, go out Thanksgiving Day, don't come back until Tuesday or Wednesday the following week. Dramatic difference in airfare and dramatic difference in your mental state, because we're going to set a record in air travel next week with 31 million people set to fly. 2.55 million a day over that long stretch, which encompasses all of the Thanksgiving break, which is about 12 to 13 days as calculated by those folks. And you will save a bundle if you follow that tip, and you will have a much better experience and no lines. Should you choose to fly out the Sunday, the Wednesday, the Friday, the following Sunday, you're going to be on suicide watch. I'm just saying. Years ago, I was in Fort Lauderdale when I didn't live here. I was set to fly back that Wednesday. I had a 7.5 hour delay. It was terrible. It was the worst trip. And the flight itself was 2 hours. So it just gives you a little perspective. Here's another travel tip. If you want to have a great experience that might be out of reach for you under normal circumstances like summertime, consider going to Norway and doing a Norwegian coastal voyage with a company called Hurtigruten. I'm going to say it again, Hurtigruten. Do you like that accent? Because they'll do this coastal voyage and you'll stop in all these great ports. And it's the kind of experience that's out of reach for some folks. And by going, you're going to save on airfare. You're going to save, obviously, big time on that actual cruise. And you're going to have an amazing experience. It's going to be freaking cold. But again, you're going to see a different side of that destination that you would not see had you gone in the summertime, and you're going to save a bundle. So little tip there. And then for air, one of our intrepid reporters, Paul Haney, he had some good airline tips on TravelPulse recently. And I think a lot of times we forget about this. But here goes. When you're flying, let's say, and your airport is 45 minutes or an hour away, that's your closest airport, you always know that there's another airport nearby. So, for instance, for me, if I'm up in the Philly market in New Jersey where my company is, I will go out of Philadelphia. But I'll drive twice as far and go out of Newark. I'll drive 4 times as far and go out of JFK. But I won't go much further than that. But I have those options. And for someone, let's say, in Ohio, you might say, I'm in Ohio. Maybe I got to fly out of Columbus or wherever the heck it is. But I got to do a connection. And then I'm looking at flights and it's $1,300. However, let's say I'm going to Hawaii and I'm going to Kauai and I'm looking at airfare. Did you ever think about flying out of Toronto? And let's think. Let's say it takes you 5 or 6 hours to drive to Toronto, but you're going to save $3,200 on your flight because you're flying with a family of 4, let's say. Is that worth going and driving 6 hours to Toronto? And ironically, Paul needed his passport to go to Toronto, but not to go to Hawaii, which is his ultimate destination. And that's what he did. And he said, saved $3,200. He also gives another example where he drove all the way to O'Hare to catch a flight to Vietnam. And it was so cheap. I think it was like some crazy flight on United. It was like under $400 to go to Vietnam. And you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to go out. I got to drive 6 hours to get to O'Hare, but I'm only going to pay $400 to go to Vietnam versus a couple $1,000 or $1,500. Most people are going to take that option and they're going to go. You just do the math. It's like getting paid a couple $100 an hour because that's what you're literally saving to take that extra drive. If it's 2 of you, you're each saving $200 an hour, driving there, or $100 if you factor it going and coming. And you know what? Go a day early, spend a day in Chicago, do the Navy Pier, have some fun. But anyway, it's all about flexibility. It's all about options. And I'll conclude with telling you again that travel agents have access to these things. And if you're talking to a good one, they might look at secondary airports for you. But you should know as a traveler that you're going to want to ask for that and let them do the heavy lifting to show you all the combinations, all of the airports that you could fly out of, all the airports you could drive to fly out of, all of the connections you could take, because you may not think about all these different ways that you can fly there via connections, and on and on and on. So anyway, with that said, it is Wednesday, and I got another podcast in the bank, and yeah, it's a day after Travel Tuesday, but maybe it's Weird Wednesday. And on that, I'm signing off from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for watching, listening, tuning in, paying attention, making notes, all of the above. You didn't really watch, but what the heck? Have a good one.